right. So I'm so excited, Debbie Lou, to have you here on the show. I think one of my natural gifts and talents is my ability to see potential in people. And I remember when I met you over a decade ago, seeing that potential in you and being so blown away that this young woman from China who really didn't speak English that well at the time would uproot her life to come to Canada to go to school. And I look at where you are today and your career and everything that you've accomplished. And it's such an honor and a privilege to A, know you, B, to have had you, do freelance work on our team many years ago. And, you know, lastly, just to keep in touch and have this relationship with you for all these years. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. It's an absolute honor for me.
I love that you're here. So why don't you start by just telling our guests a little bit about you and your journey? Because your journey and your experience of coming to Canada when you did, and kind of the decisions you made to kind of not only just get your education, but grow your career have always been extremely interesting to me. I remember when you were working for us and you came to me and you had this opportunity to do this internship and you were going to go work for this company for free for a certain period of time, and I thought you were crazy, but you have made very strategic moves along the way in your career. So start at the very beginning, tell us a little bit about you and your journey, and then let's talk about some of the courageous moves that you've made along the way. I'm going to move
Totally.
my microphone over. I realized that it's not really in the right spot, but it's better now.
Okay, yeah. So I was born and raised in China, as you know. I moved to Canada when I was 18 years old after finishing high school in China. I was always that girl who wanted to do a little bit more in school. Like obviously I cared about my homework and all of that, my grades, but I wanted to do things that are creative, that's promotional, that's related to the media. I loved writing. I loved working with anything that's more so connecting people or promoting certain things. So naturally, I applied to the journalism and communications program at Carleton and moved
Mhm.
to Canada at the age of 18 by myself. I think rather saying, I was brave doing what I was doing was more so I'd say I didn't really understand what I needed to feel scared of. I didn't even recognize I should have any fear. I just came and did it because I had so much passion and desire and excitement for a brand new life in North America, especially because of the media industry and the communications world here with all the innovation and the liberation that you have over here. So went to school at Carleton, immediately felt very discouraged because my English became the barrier. And that was very shocking to me because in China, my English ability and skills were my strength. And having that become my weakness in Canada was very hard for me. But I wasn't about to give up because that's just not who I am. So I forced myself to make friends with local English speakers and really dived into the culture here in Canada and was constantly reaching out to people to make friends and reaching out to opportunities that I could to secure internships and expanding my network. And that's how I met Sam through my first internship, and that's how I met you. And through that, I'm forever indebted to you that you recognized my potential at the time. And I think at a time where I felt not enough confidence in myself, but you saw the potential in me, gave me so much courage and confidence to make me get out of my comfort zone and pursue and just believed that everything I wanted to do, I could. That was a huge influence for me for throughout my career. And I was comfortable in Ottawa. I was working with you guys on the Lisa Larter team. I wanted to get into PR, going back to, my interest in working with media. And at the time in Ottawa, it was very limited. So I decided to move to a brand new region and city again picked up everything that I had and I built in Ottawa, moving to Toronto. And at the time, the unpaid internship was really difficult, but the value I thought I was getting was the network I could receive from my internship, and also the experience that I could receive also from my internship in the PR industry. That's how I could get my foot in the door. It's not legal anymore, but at the time it was, surprisingly. And I hustled a lot. I think in my 20s, the whole decade, I was a hustler. I was very much for, never stop working. If you had free time, instead of relaxing and spending money, I could do something else with my life to earn money. I had a
I
lot of
don't
energy.
I don't know that you're a hustler though. Like to me, there's a negative connotation to the hustle or to being a hustler. I think you were just really driven and ambitious.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that sometimes people look at other people who are successful and they think they're lucky. And the truth is, most people who are really successful have worked really hard and they've been really driven and they've been really ambitious. And I think that's what you were.
Thank you. I don't know if you remember. I think long time ago when I just started working for you, I made a post talking about, I think it was our trip to Dallas for a conference. And there was somebody commented on my Facebook post saying that, oh, you're so lucky that you could do this. And you actually replied to that person saying, she's not lucky. She earned everything she's got and she worked hard for it. And that stuck with me because I do agree with you. And I think to look at other people's success, nothing of it is purely luck. So
Mhm.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there is some luck in life. There's some luck in timing. I mean, you were lucky that you met Sam and that you met me. Like, there's a little bit of luck in that, but
Hmm.
the luck was in the meeting. The real magic happens because of your ability to invest in relationships and the way you show up and the way you present yourself. So I, I'm,
Hmm.
I just don't, I don't know. Oprah Winfrey says luck happens when opportunity meets preparation. And I'm a believer in that. If you are prepared and you've done the work, you've done the reps, then when the opportunities arrive, yeah, you are lucky, but it's because you did the
Hmm.
work.
Totally, totally. I agree. And I thanked my younger self for that. So going back to what I was saying about my career, I obviously got my foot in the door in the PR industry in Toronto. And I think just exactly what you said, I was very much of a networker. I valued relationships significantly. So I was constantly out there participating in network events. I think also learning from what you kind of taught us to do when I was working for you, always to join these network events and meet people, make a connection, and see what's in it for them and make it valuable for them. So even after I would meet somebody, I would keep in touch, check in with them, see how they are with life just for no reason. But then I know if I ever need a favor from them later on in life, they will give it to me. And that's what happened throughout my career. I achieved a lot of growth and promotions in titles and salaries because of my relationships. I think it was just my first internship and my first job in Toronto that I had to do outreaching for myself. From that point on, all of the jobs that I've secured are through relationships. It was people reaching out to me thinking that I was a good fit for the role. And,
Mhm.
that little girl who moved to Canada with, okay English, now, I'm a VP of a PR agency in North America. So I feel very fortunate of what I've achieved in my career. And also, I know that this is not the end. I still have things that I want to achieve, goals that I want to work towards. But yeah, I'm really enjoying what I have right now.
That's amazing. It's quite the journey. And, when you say you invest in relationships, when you invest in relationships, you know that if you need a favor, people are likely to say yes. But, there's something else there that I want to just unpack a little bit with you, which is not being afraid to ask. Women in general tend to be afraid to ask for an introduction, for a favor, for a connection. Where did you learn to be comfortable enough to ask for the things that you wanted in terms of building your network?
That's a really good question. And I definitely see that pattern in women. I think for me, it was when I was in school with trying to overcome getting my English to be better. And I think that pushed me out of my comfort zone in a way that I felt comfortable asking people to help me with my English and asking people to be my friends to so I can improve my English in that way. So I think that was a good foundation for me in a way that later on in life, I just felt like, oh, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no, then I don't have anything to lose. And another thing I remember, because I worked part-time in retail in Ottawa, as you know, and I remember my manager said to me at the time, because I was having a hard time selling things to people. I was afraid to close the sale and ask for the sale. And my manager at the time, he had very thick accent. He's from France, and he was telling me, he's like, you think if I was afraid to make that move and ask people or ask my wife out, you think I'd be married? You think I'd be the manager of the store right now? So just try. Legit. He just told me just try. And I've been applying that to my life since.
Mhm. I think one of the key elements that goes along with asking is not being attached to the outcome. So,
Right.
you know, I ask people to be on my podcast, and most people say yes, but some people say no.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't be attached to the no's. You can't take no's personally because you just
Exactly.
don't know what's going on in somebody's life at the time. And sometimes we ask people for things that we have no business asking for. Sometimes we haven't made those emotional deposits into the bank account, and therefore the law of reciprocity is not at play because we're taking. I remember Sandra Yancey saying years and years and years ago, givers need to draw a line in the sand because takers never will. And I thought that was a really powerful quote. I think
Mhm.
that there is something to be said for generosity. And when you are generous and you give to others on a regular basis and you show up and you are of service to others, then it makes it a lot easier for people to say yes to you.
Totally. I agree with that. Not attaching to the outcome just because I asked you and you said no to me. You don't really know me that well. So on a personal level, I can't take that personally. So
Mhm.
I think that gave me a lot of just relief and not feeling disappointed when people say
Mhm.
no to me.
So, talk to me a little bit about PR because I mean, in my company, we do all kinds of marketing for people, but we don't really do PR work. So,
Hmm.
what is it about PR that is fascinating for you? And how would you describe the difference between marketing and public relations?
Hmm. I think public relation, it's very funny because I think till this day, my parents don't know what I'm doing with my work. I think public relations is a concept that's very hard for people to understand if they're not within the industry. But to help people understand better, public relations, I would say, is a channel of marketing. What it does is really to maintain brand's reputation through media. So when you talk about doing public relations for a brand. Let's just use McDonald's as an example. So, if there's a backlash with a product, the public relations team is there to nurture their relationship with media outlets to ensure journalists don't say too many negative things about the brand via media. They need to do crisis management. They need to also strategize, make a strategy behind what the CEO, for example, need to say to make consumers feel better, how to do damage control. And on a positive note, more proactively, brands use public relations experts to build and establish and nurture relationships with media outlets. So when they launch a new product, they need to do media exposure. Whenever you see new product launches in the news, it's all through PR. So usually there's a press release being crafted about whatever is being released or promoted, and using relationships, we would contact media outlets to teach them, quote unquote, how to frame and how to really package the messages out to the public. So it's really, I would say, we're the medium between brands and consumers via media.
Okay. And so most of our listeners are small business owners, entrepreneurs, and when they think about PR, what should they be thinking of? So let's take me, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on TV, I've done radio, I have done a lot of it in the last little while. But let's take me as an example. I am new to living full time in Florida. I'm new to living in Ormond Beach. I don't have a media connection here in Ottawa. I knew all the media people. I could literally, pretty much message somebody and say, "Hey, I'd love to be on the morning show and talk about blah, blah, blah." And I'd get a response from people because they knew me, but I don't have a network here. So let's pretend you're advising me because a lot of our listeners are like me. Where does somebody start in terms of
Mm-hmm.
getting PR? Because when you talk about representing brands and you use an example like McDonald's, I suddenly think my small business can't afford PR. And so
Mm-hmm.
talk to our listeners about the best way for, let's say, businesses that are, I don't know, under the 5 million mark to really be
Mm-hmm.
thinking about PR, especially if the founder of the business is a public facing person in the brand.
Mm-hmm. So I would advise small business owners and entrepreneurs to see PR as a way to add more credibility to their business. It's not necessarily a sales channel because there are absolutely way better ways that you can generate conversion and sales for you. When you think about PR, I do consider it an investment. It might not be the primary marketing channel that you consider when you want to run a business because when you are small and nimble, you want to think about making money first. So when we think about PR, for example, if you are in Florida, you don't have any connections yet, and you find a PR professional in the area to help you get the word out, what I would do is craft a bio for you, obviously using your experience and what you've done, your achievements, and all of the things that you want to show off and brag about Lisa Larter. I would put that in a short paragraph in a bio and would pitch you to media outlets that I think would get value out of you. For example, if there's a business related morning show, or if they're talking about the economy in Florida for the next 5, 10 years, or anything related to what you do, I would pitch you to that media outlet and say, hey, this is Lisa Larter. This is what she's done and achieved. She's also been on featured on whatever TV show, radio, newspaper in the past, and she can provide value in the below. And then I would actually give examples and topics that you can talk about to give them ideas and pitch this to them. So they are more likely to reach out to you, or through a PR professional, they would connect with you to set up potentially an interview with you to see if you're a good fit. And you can be positioned as the business expert in this region, but also there's regional media outlets, but potentially you could be on Forbes, right? Talking about business
Mhm.
stuff for North America in general, where potentially there are Americans who want to invest in the Canadian market. You can also provide expertise. I think it's to find a PR professional that can really discover your niche, identify that, and really package it in a way that can sell and pitch to media outlets. And when you are featured in media, that gives people more trust towards you. If they've
Trust
never
and
heard of you,
authority.
exactly. If they've never heard of you, but let's say this XYZ station in Florida has been around for years. They trust the station, they trust the TV host. So if you're being promoted through a channel of trust, then that gives you a lot more credibility and will help with generating sales and
Mhm.
conversion later on.
So, should people be thinking about local PR experts or national PR experts or both?
I would say it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you are servicing your customers locally, definitely just go with local. If you are trying to build a business that appeals to the national demographic, go with a national expert. However, when you are small and you don't really have any PR work done in the past, just start small because you
Mhm.
can always start with regional and local media outlets. And who knows, maybe someone from CNN who might be from Florida visiting family and just so happens see you on TV and think that you can be of value for their audience on a national level. You never know.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And so, what about people who are a little bit nervous about maybe being on TV? I mean, I've done so much video and television that I'm super comfortable in front of the camera, but there are a lot of people that are not so comfortable. What advice do you have for them to get comfortable so that they could participate in those types of opportunities?
So when you typically work with a PR professional, they do media training, interview
Mm,
training before you actually go do an interview. There are ways to prevent that to make you feel more comfortable in the beginning. For example, let's just say it's you've never done TV before and this is your first time ever doing a TV interview. What I would say is, I would firstly confirm that it's not live television, which will give you a more comfortable feel because if it's recorded, they can edit it out. So I would prioritize non-live television interviews first and then consider live TV interviews when you feel more comfortable. On top of that, I would ask the producer to send a list of questions in advance so you can practice at home. We can craft script, things you should say, things to avoid in advance so you feel more prepared when you're on TV. And
mhm.
then once you have a little bit more experience with that, and then I would push for live television or live radio interviews.
Okay. So get people to start slowly and then work their way up.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah,
probably a good idea for people to start doing podcasts and or videos just to get comfortable with being on camera, comfortable speaking as a whole, right? If they're not comfortable.
totally.
And
Totally.
do you think that this is something that people can DIY? Like, can they do it themselves, or is it better to work with a PR professional? Because I know that when you are pitching the media yourself, there can be a lot of you can get a hit, but you can also get a lot of rejection. And
Mhm.
so what is the advantage of working with a PR professional versus trying to do it yourself?
So think of it as working with a business coach. I think it's got similarities in that way, where you can reach your destination in many different ways, and there are shortcuts as well when you work with somebody who's got the experience and expertise. So I think that applies to working with a PR professional. So the advantage of working with a PR professional is that they already have a network of media people. They know how to pitch you to make you more appealing to specific media outlets or producers. So that way, it's easier and quicker for you to achieve what you're looking for. So you reach your destination faster. But obviously, it comes with investment. Not everybody can
Mhm,
afford to hire a PR professional. There are different ways of working with a PR professional. You can hire a freelancer. Usually, that comes at a lower cost because they don't have overhead cost. You can work with agencies. That's when you have a brand that's grown to be a bigger size, and so on and so forth. Obviously, you can do it by yourself. Like I said, just like working with a business coach, you can do it yourself or you can work with somebody professional to do that. The advantage is obviously you save money, but
mhm,
the downside of it is it might take you much longer, and it'll come with trial and errors, obviously, because you're not experienced in this field. But if you have some background, definitely you can do it. But for somebody who has zero knowledge in the media space, it can be somewhat more difficult for them to
mhm.
achieve. However, I don't think it's impossible. It just would take a little bit longer.
Yeah, most people I know that have had luck with the media and getting on TV have worked with some type of a PR professional, or they have really good network connections. So if
Yeah.
I go back to myself when I lived in Ottawa, I knew a lot of people in the media, and because I knew a lot of people, it was a little bit easier because I knew them. So it goes back to what you said, the value of your network. But if you don't know those people and you don't have access, then the trust quotient isn't there. They don't know, like, and trust you. So
Hmm.
let's talk a little bit about marketing because I love what you said that PR is really a channel in marketing that directly links you to the media. Marketing has changed so much since you worked with our team, back in 2013. I
Yeah.
mean, back then it was so easy to do social media marketing. And today it's so different. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing in some, because you work with bigger brands than we do. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in terms of marketing right now, whether it's social media marketing, whether it's new and innovative ways of using AI? What are you experiencing out there?
Right now, the hottest thing is working with influencers. I think influencers, this whole area has become a new media channel, if you would call it. So people actually use influencers as a way, like they would use to work with local TV stations, because these people have followers and their
Mhm.
followers trust and like them already. So when brands leverage influencers to sell products, usually they can get pretty decent conversion, depending on who they hire. So I think I do see a huge trend for the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, of a lot of brands cutting TV budget to work with influencers instead and putting a lot more investment that way. Especially during COVID when everything was shut down,
Mhm.
out of home budget was cut because no one's outside. So promoting things via the internet has become a lot more popular. I think the habit still stays with us after the pandemic. So influencers is an area of tremendous growth, I would say. AI is really cool. I think it's still a little gimmicky right now because it cannot completely replace humans, I would say.
Mhm.
We've definitely implemented AI tools to make our job easier and to make it less time consuming for certain tasks. For example, like sometimes the AI tools can replace, let's say, admin work or intern work. However, it cannot replace the human brain. So you still need strategic thinkers to map out the business trajectory and how you want to grow a business plan and things like that, or a marketing plan. So, yeah, I would say the two things that really stick out to me are obviously AI and working with influencers, which I think small business owners should consider.
Mhm. How do small business owners connect with influencers?
I think working with influencers now has become extremely transparent, just considering how popular it is. So they can simply DM them, reach out. Usually, I would say 99% out of 100, you can find their contact information on their social media page. So I don't think it's necessarily hard to work with influencers, no matter who you are. The whole thing is about how to make your message appealing to them.
Mhm.
I think investing time in understanding what the influencers their content is, what they post about, and understand, personal things about them, like, oh, do they have kids? Do they have dogs? And things like that. They would really appreciate when you reach out if you know details about themselves, and that will make them want to work with you more. Going back to building relationships, right? People want to
Mhm.
see what's in it for them. They want to feel special. So, and then another thing is you don't necessarily need to have a large budget to work with influencers. You don't have to go for the big guys. You can work with local influencers that potentially have like less than 10,000 followers at the time, but I'm sure because of their popularity and likeness within the local community, they still get a lot of people who would engage with them and potentially convert to paying customers for the
Mhm.
small business.
Yeah, I know somebody who has built a very, very successful business and she credits it all to micro influencers. So
Yes.
not even big influencers. We're talking like small, 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 lots of really, really small people, like not small people, but people who have relatively small followings, but those
Yeah,
people care a lot about them. I've always thought
exactly.
it was interesting when people people invite me to be on this, that, or the other. They want to do a telesummit, but you need to have a mailing list of X number of 10,000 people. I'm like, so 10,000 people on my mailing list is more valuable to you if I have zero sales in my company, but I have 10,000 people on my list versus a smaller list and a seven-figure business. It's never,
Mm,
it's like sometimes I think people fall for false metrics. And
yeah.
sometimes those numbers, sometimes the 10,000 numbers are bought, and sometimes they're real and they really have influence. I think it's important to be able to see And you can see it's pretty transparent today because you can see in the comments how many comments are spam versus people
Totally.
really engaging with the person. So I think
Totally.
it's definitely an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, I love what you said about AI as well, and the need for the human brain. Because one of the things that I found in using AI as a tool in our business is the smarter you are about how you use it, the better it works for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like the outputs are equal to the inputs. If what you are putting into, let's say ChatGPT as an example, is weak, you're going to get a weak response. But if you're actually training AI and you're providing it with enough information and you're really intelligent about how you use it, it can really help you a lot in your business today.
For sure. For sure. Again, it can't replace humans. You still need somebody who knows how to use the tool in order to achieve what you're trying to get.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I think AI is going to change the way we work over the next decade, much like mobile, smartphones and social media has changed the way we interact and communicate over the last 2 decades. It's going to be
Yeah.
fascinating to see how that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the very beginning right now for AI. Just
Hmm.
like when you first started doing social media, you were definitely one of the pioneers in the social media marketing space.
Hmm. Yeah, it's super, super interesting for me. All right. So I'm curious as to what you think is coming next. I mean, aside from AI, what are some of your predictions for what we will see from a marketing perspective over the next 5 years?
I think traditional media definitely wouldn't be in favor. I think it's already happened. I think that it'll just continue to happen, especially with all these internet tools and channels that people can leverage. I think the investment for marketing will start to become reduced, will decrease over time because of how accessible marketing tools have become and
Mhm.
how many channels there are out there. Another thing I think potentially could be a trend is because of the current economy that I think a lot of brands will want to take marketing in-house instead of working with agencies. So you already see a lot of cuts happening within the agency industry. I think brands now have the tools, like I said, because they're a lot more accessible in comparison to years ago, that they can easily do marketing in-house instead of hiring an agency and paying agency fees on top of that, which is why I think, marketing will be less expensive per
Mhm.
conversion. At the same time, agencies might get a hit for the next 5 years. But we never know because the economy can get better and maybe brands would still want to continue working with agencies, especially bigger ones, to save time and um, for the convenience. So yeah.
I know
But
one of the reasons that some of our clients like to work with our team is because instead of having to hire multiple people, when you are working with an agency on a retainer base and you have a designer, a developer, a copywriter, a social media marketer, like, you can basically get a full service team that is managed by somebody else instead of having to create the entire department within your company. Now, if you're a McDonald's, clearly you're going to create an entire department. But if you are a smaller business, then being able to just invest in that department without having the departmental overhead is a good way for people to go. I think you're
Mhm.
right. I think the cost of marketing, it could start to come down a bit if AI helps marketers do their work faster. And
Yeah.
so if you look at, most retainer in the agency world, most retainers are based on time. You calculate how
Yeah.
much time is being allocated to the client and you put your retainer together based on a percentage of somebody's time being allocated to a person as a resource. And so if the work can get done faster, then you may not need to charge as much for the retainer piece because instead of needing, say 10 hours or 25% of someone's FTE, now you only need half of that. And so
Exactly.
I can see where that could potentially happen for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Um, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I do. I prepared. Okay, so I have three questions. The first one is, as a woman in business, where obviously we know the business world is very much male dominated,
Mhm.
do you ever have self-doubt? And if so, how do you overcome your self-doubt?
I don't have self-doubt because I'm a woman. So if I have self-doubt, it has nothing to do with being a woman instead of a man. If anything, I get annoyed by things that uh I get annoyed when I see women being compensated less than what men are for doing the same work. I get annoyed when I see men being bold enough to do something that women are not bold enough to do. But I've never felt like being a woman prevented me from doing what I wanted to do. So if I'm not feeling confident about something, it's typically got nothing to do with my gender. It's more about me just not feeling confident in that thing.
Mm,
And how I have always tried to overcome the things that feel uncomfortable is by leaning into them and learning more about how to do them. I think that discomfort is a sign of growth. If you're comfortable in everything that you're doing, then you're probably not growing. And one of our core values is growth. We want to be not just me, but my entire team. We want to be continuously learning and growing. And
mhm.
so, for me, eliminating self-doubt really comes from leaning into whatever it is that is creating that self-doubt and figuring out what I can do about it. I remember, Debbie, years and years and years ago when I was in my early 20s, sitting in my car and I was thinking about worry. And I made a decision then that I wasn't going to worry about things that I couldn't control because I
Mm,
couldn't control them. And then if I was going to worry about things, I would only worry about the things that I could control because if I could control it, there was no need to worry. I should actually do something about it. And that's kind of
mhm.
always been my philosophy. It's like if something starts to niggle away at me and I find myself worrying about it, I stop myself and I say, okay, can I control this? Yes or no? If I can't control it, then let it go because there's nothing I can do about it. But if I can control it, then what can I do right now so that this isn't taking up space in my brain? And so
Mm,
it's the same thing. I think when you feel a lack of confidence, it's usually you're afraid, you're worried about something going wrong. And so I like to kind of
mhm.
look at that something and figure out, well, what do I need to do to make it go right?
Wow, that's very helpful. I agree with that. So, being in business for all these years, especially, with your experience being a high school dropout, and then, it's not the conventional route that people would describe it. Do you
Mhm.
have any regrets?
I don't. I don't. The only regret that I would say I have is that maybe I didn't start my entrepreneurial journey sooner.
Hmm.
ClearNet acquired TELUS in 2001 and or 2000 and 2000. And when ClearNet acquired TELUS, I made some money because I had stock options. And if I had been brave enough and if I had had the clarity to know what I really wanted to do then, and I had started 6 years earlier, especially if I'd started in the wireless industry,
Mm,
I could have, I could have made a lot more money in terms of the model, the dealership model that I was in, because the residuals and everything, there was so much growth between 2000 and 2006. But by 2006, the market was so saturated that when I started my dealership, it wasn't as easy to get the gains. So that would be the only thing that I regret. I, I talk about this regularly. I think that there are many methods, there's many paths to becoming educated. And
yeah,
my path, I ended up quitting high school, not because I wasn't smart, but
yeah.
because, my dad was being transferred and financially I needed to do something to support myself. And I look at my story now and I think it actually inspires other people who maybe didn't have the opportunity to go to college or university to see what is possible for them. I don't think there's anything wrong with post-secondary education. I think that we all learn differently, though, and you should do what is right for you, and that we should respect all the different ways that you can get there. On the job learning for certain things is just as important as post secondary education. Now, clearly, you can't become a surgeon if you don't go to school. But there
Yeah,
are some things that you can learn on the job or you can learn from experience where you just it's a different path of education. So no, I don't have any regrets that way at all.
amazing.
Mm.
So my final question for you is that, in the current economy, the climate, it's not looking great for a lot of people who are trying to just find a secure job. And I think it's pushing people in a good way to figure out what they can do themselves, starting
Mhm.
a business and things like that. So what's your advice to women, I'd say, in their 20s, 30s, trying to figure things out in such depressing environment right now? What's your advice for them if they want to pursue starting their own business?
Learn how to sell. Seriously, one of the things that I think we should all be able to do is generate income on demand.
Yeah.
You should know how to generate income if you need to make money. And
Hmm.
you cannot have confidence in your ability to do that if you don't know how to sell. And selling isn't, the old school car salesman thing that people think it is. It's not a bad thing. It's like, do you know how to transfer belief? Do you know how to solve a problem? Do you know how to close a sale? Do you know how to get somebody enrolled in doing business with you?
Hmm.
Side hustles, gig economies, startups, they're everywhere. But the reality is 95% of businesses still fail within the first 5 years. And a high percentage of businesses that are started by women are not profitable because women shy away from the numbers. They shy away from the math of really understanding how to build a business, and they're not comfortable selling. Whereas if
Hmm.
you get comfortable with selling and you get comfortable with the financial aspects of running a business, sky's the limit. But you'll never feel confident running your own business if you don't understand, if you don't know how to sell. And so I think selling is an underrated skill that really helps women be successful in business. Do you know
Hmm.
that less than, I think, 3% of all women owned businesses ever exceed the seven-figure mark? 3%.
That's it?
3%, but there's a significantly larger percentage of men that do it. So why is it that the percentage for women is so small and the percentage for men
Mm,
is not? It's because men are not afraid to sell. Men are not afraid to say yes to doing something that maybe they're only 50% qualified for, whereas women think they need to be 100% qualified before they say yes because, oh my God, I
yeah.
don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to get over that and we need to take control and be in control of our financial future. And the only way for me to be in control of your financial future is know how to generate income. And you can't really do that if you don't know how to sell.
Wow. That's amazing. Very important because sales is kind of like a thing that people are tired of hearing about, but it's so important. It's like a basic skill you must have for running a business.
It makes the world go round. And I would also say that the economy is not all everybody thinks the economy is all doom and gloom. And I think that sometimes we buy into what the media is saying, and there are some sectors that are not doing well. But I'll tell you, 2023 was our best year in sales ever in the company.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
we just had our best. It's what's today's date? Today's date. We're recording this on February 22nd, Thursday, February 22nd. And on Monday, my assistant said to me, we just had our best February ever in the history of the business.
Wow.
So I say that because I think sometimes, again, worrying about the things you can control versus the things you can't control. You can't control the economy, but you can control your business. You can
Hmm.
get out there and do what you can do for you. Don't worry about what's going on with everyone else. Worry about what's going on with you.
Hmm. I just thought of another question. It might be a little personal. I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about it, but I'm gonna ask anyways because I think people are curious. So you're a very strong-minded woman. You are extremely successful. You know your shit. And am I allowed to swear? I don't
You're
know.
allowed.
Uh, how do you navigate relationships? Because you have a very happy marriage and a great life. So how do you navigate that part of your life in terms of, we talked about the differences between men and women, and a lot of men are intimidated. Obviously, sometimes it's because of their ego. They're intimidated by women who are more successful or very doing really well in business than them. How do you navigate that relationship for you personally?
I don't. It's easy. I mean, my husband and I have been together since I was 25. I'll be 54 next month. So we've been together for almost 30 years. And I think the great thing about our relationship is we both value each other for who we are. I don't try to be
Mm,
somebody different for him. He doesn't try to be somebody different for me. We don't try to make each other be a certain way. We're both entrepreneurial, so that helps.
yeah.
And we both have tremendous respect for each other and each other's efforts. You know, we're a team and
Mhm.
we show up and try to help each other in whatever ways because we're a family unit. You know, while
Mhm.
our kids have four legs, we're still a family unit, and everything that we do is really to help us, you know, further our life and our life goals together. So it's not even something I think about. And
Wow.
maybe I just lucked out in terms of, again, I hate the word luck, but you know, I have a relationship with someone who treats me really well and respects me. And I can't imagine being in a relationship with someone who doesn't. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I dated a lot of dogs before I started dating my husband. And I joked after we started dating, I said, "You've ruined me for life because if we ever break up, I will never put up with crap from people again." So I think it's just when you are in a healthy relationship with someone, that stuff doesn't happen.
Wow. I love that. It's
Good
very hopeful for
questions.
women. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of women out there think that because if you think about a strong, successful woman, the whole stereotypical image is that she's divorced,
No, you know
and
what?
don't love her.
My husband has come to client on sites with off sites with me where I'm doing like strategy work with a client and he's there with me. And at the end of the session, he's like, "Wow, it's like amazing to see you in action. Like you're so good at that. I don't know how you do it." Like it's not, there's no, and he's a strong, successful entrepreneur
Yeah.
in his own right. So I
Yeah.
think that if you're in a relationship with somebody who wants you to dim your light, you're in the wrong relationship.
Yeah. Preach.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
Lisa.
All right. Well, I might have to have you back. Maybe we'll do another one and I'll put you in the interview seat. You're really good at this.
Please. I love that. I actually obviously, I love learning from people, and I think there's just so much to learn from you. But yeah, happy to be back anytime.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being here and for sharing everything you did with us. It was great to see you and connect with you again. And I still see that potential and spark in you. So it's really, really
Thank
great to see
you.
you. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Lisa.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time.